Hello, I'm Dr. Ruth Lopez Turley, Director of the Kinder Institute for Urban Research at Rice University. And I'm delighted today to be once again accompanied by Commissioner Adrian Garcia to talk about what is happening in Precinct 2 and even in other parts of the county. Commissioner, it is wonderful to be with you again. I know that we had a great conversation during the State of the Precinct luncheon, but a lot has happened since then. Please give us some updates.
Yeah, first of all, thank you. Thank you for always helping us communicate with the public, and thank you all for tuning in. But I really appreciate the collaboration that we have going with the Kinder Institute, and so very excited about the future that you can provide for all of Harris County and beyond. But to that end, a lot has happened since the State of the Precinct, and we're having great discussions on a lot of things, but very excited about the conversations we've been having since then.
Right, and of course, during the State of the Precinct, a lot was happening then.
Yes.
And then a lot of conversations have happened since then as a result of what was happening with the storm. Please give us some concrete examples of some of those conversations that have happened since that luncheon event.
Well, since the State of the Precinct, a lot has happened. The recovery process is painfully slow, just because Harris County took a major hit. We were on the dirty side of Hurricane Beryl, and then we were recovering from el derecho. So that complicated things. But since the State of the Precinct, we have collected over 400,000 cubic yards of debris. Now, to give you a sort of a vision of that, that's about 13,000 dump trucks full of debris.
Wow.
So
and where is it going?
It's going to the sites that we have identified and working with FEMA, because all of that is federally reimbursable. So we collaborate and coordinate with FEMA to identify the sites, and then we take them in some cases to landfills. But unfortunately, illegal dumping does complicate the process. So I want to encourage our folks to please visit the Precinct 2 website at hcp2.com, so you can learn how to separate your debris from your trash, and that way both can get collected appropriately.
Right. And is there still more debris to be picked up?
Absolutely.
It's ongoing.
There's still, but we're making great progress, and I'm excited about what we've been able to do. But we've also been collaborating with FEMA and the Small Business Administration. Francisco Sanchez in particular, he's the disaster recovery, I call him the czar for SBA.
That's appropriate.
It is, it is. And we've stood up disaster recovery centers. Baldry has been our first disaster recovery center for both El Derecho and Beryl. But we have since opened up 3 more sites in Pasadena and Baytown and in Denver Harbor inside the city of Houston. And so he is helping us in the SBA, making sure that the people who are eligible for FEMA and SBA assistance have access to their specific portals and websites and application processes.
And are there any other disaster recovery efforts underway that people need to know about? Because I know that, this can be a really long process, and sometimes we get impatient, of course, which is understandable because we want everything to happen right away, but it's such a huge effort. Are there other things that are still happening right now to help with the recovery efforts?
Look, Precinct 2 is a incredibly focused organization on the public. Whether disaster or not, we're always doing something to help our public. So in different forms, other nonprofits, other organizations, other governmental offices, we collaborate very well with the City of Houston, the mayor, as well as members of Congress, our state officials. So whatever they have going, we tend to collaborate and partner with so that we can make sure that they are getting the support that they need from us. But just to give you a perspective, the disaster recovery centers, both between El Derecho and Hurricane Beryl, have helped to provide assistance to about over 5,000 people.
Great.
And that has culminated thus far in loans applied, Small Business Administration, low interest loans to the public in the tune of $51 million for El Derecho thus far, and over 99 million for Hurricane Beryl. So I'm very, very grateful to SBA, Francisco Sanchez. He's a hometown product, and so he hasn't forgotten where he comes from, and he's helping us bring the money back.
So then what about the future, right? Because as we know, we live in a disaster-prone area. We love living here, but there's a small price to pay for living here.
Exactly.
And we always have to be forward-looking, as you know very well. We have to be working, even as we're still recovering from the last storm, we have to be looking forward to the next storm. And how are we preparing ourselves and helping others getting prepared, especially others who don't have the means, right? Every time the disaster hits, we all feel it, but some people feel it a lot more.
Yep.
As you know, like in the Kinder Houston area survey, we asked people if they can come up with $400 in an emergency, and almost half of Harris County respondents said they could not come up with $400 in an emergency. And we know this last storm was such an emergency for a lot of people. And so what are we doing looking forward to help prepare for the next disaster?
Well, to look forward, we have to remember where we've been.
Yes.
And I need to go back to 2017 when Hurricane Harvey hit.
Right.
After Hurricane Harvey, the public approved a $2.5 billion bond. We have since received additional resources from the General Land Office through Commissioner Buckingham. And so we now have over $5 billion that we are investing in our infrastructure. Now, going back a little bit further, in 2015, when we had the Memorial Day flood, we had the same type of water levels hit then that Hurricane Beryl brought to us this time. And just as a comparison, in 2015, we had over 3,000 structures flooded, and in Hurricane Beryl, somewhere between, I think the official number is not yet defined, but we're about 20 or less. So 3,000 to 20, that tells me that the infrastructure improvements that we're making through the bond are absolutely working. But we have to maintain that so that we can keep it working and keep it working to the point that one day we'll be able to take Houston, Harris County out of the national light as the place that floods when you leave your water hose on. So the progress is working, but we're also making sure that we're being much more thoughtful about the broader conversation of resiliency.
Right. No, that's really good that you point out that progress, because a lot of times, especially right after we've experienced a disaster like this, we're very pessimistic and we're feeling down about things, and we don't recognize that actually this is an improvement.
It is. It is.
So that's a really good reminder.
It is. And so I just want to tell folks, thank you for trusting us with those resources. And at least you have one fiscal hawk on the court that is always cognizant about the progress that we're making. We need these improvements sooner rather than later. And so, Mother Nature has not yet given us another major event like Harvey. Beryl was only a Category 1 event. And so I want to make sure that the resources that we have are being invested and the projects are being done and completed as soon as possible, so that if Mother Nature does challenge us yet again, that we'll be much more resilient and we can keep people's homes from flooding. And the prevention aspect of this is the greatest focus and attention I give. And that's why I gave my precinct a great deal of attention on what I could do directly on drainage maintenance. And so it all works together, but I'm just proud of the fact that when you look at the Memorial Day flood in 2015, when you had 3,000 structures flooded, and then with Hurricane Beryl, less than 20, that really does excite me and tell me that we're on the right track.
Right. So as we think about these improvements, so I'm grateful that you reminded us of these improvements. Of course, we think there are even more improvements to be made. And as we focus on the next level of improvements, we of course have to think about environmental initiatives, because they go hand in hand with our ability to withstand and recover from natural disasters, right? Our resiliency. So what kinds of environmental initiatives are you working on to help us go into that next level of improvement?
Being the commissioner of Precinct 2, I also represent the Port of Houston. I represent industry. I represent those fence line communities that abut to industry. I hear from people on a regular basis about the smell that might sometimes smell in their neighborhoods. That we have the highest rates of cancer in some of our neighborhoods, not just in Harris County, but in the state of Texas. And so recognizing that we have all of those challenges, the environment is a major issue for me. I'm proud to have been endorsed by some of the major environmental organizations as I move in this public service. But that's what keeps me motivated to lead on the Solar for All grant application. That helped Harris County receive $250 million.
Great.
So that we can solar panel our rooftops, all of our county buildings. We can install electric vehicle charging stations, and we can provide energy efficiency savings in our county buildings. Just with a little bit that we've already done, we've saved $1.3 million. Imagine what we can do when all of our buildings have benefited from the Solar for All grant.
Right.
It's also going to allow us to install charging and batteries for our buildings so that we don't have to depend on those gas guzzling generators that make a lot of noise.
Oh yes, they're terrible.
Yeah.
But we need them.
Exactly. But it also has me and my team focused on applying for other grants. So we've been successful at the Texas VEMP grant application that has allowed us to replace some of our aging heavy vehicle fleet. So we'll be able to replace some of our heavy operating machinery. And then we've also been successful at receiving a TCEQ grant that has provided for replacing 5 of our aging buses that are gas guzzlers as well with electric buses.
Nice.
And so state of the art, and
they're quiet.
Yes, and I hope more comfortable for our seniors.
Yes.
But it is, all of that works together when you talk about making environmental progress in the county, but in this precinct in particular, because of all the things that I mentioned.
And what's the estimated timeline for this Solar for All? I mean, I'm sure that's going to take a while.
It's going to take a while, but I'm excited that we'll be breaking ground later this year for the installation of those charging stations. And
so
those
that's
batteries.
starting.
It's
soon.
starting.
Good.
It's
Good.
I started on this literally in my first month in office when I went to a conference and I saw what another county was doing, and I came back and I told my staff, we got to do this.
And we get lots of sunshine?
Yes,
Let's
use
it.
Exactly.
Yes.
We have lots of land that we're not using. Let's put it to good work. And and then as I mentioned, we need to look towards the future. As you were asking earlier, what are we doing to look towards the future? This is just one of those things that we're looking towards the future. And we're also thinking about how do we provide other aspects of resiliency for the community, because Solar for All, for example, is going to provide, my goal was to create a system where we could help the surrounding communities, because I also have the lowest medium income of all of Harris County.
So that's a challenge.
Yeah. So helping people pay for their energy and at a much more affordable rate is critical. And then as we think about the future, the energy sector one day will be a clean energy sector.
Because it has to be.
It has to be.
Yes.
And so that means we also have to begin to prepare for clean energy jobs with our union workers. So all of that works together. It's all part of the broader strategy. And I'm so excited to be a part of it, but much more excited that I have a team that is helping me get there sooner rather than later.
Great. And then what about as you were talking about everything that has to work together to make this happen, say more about our infrastructure, right? So the Solar for All is one example. We're creating essentially a new infrastructure that will help us do even better in the next emergency, right? But do even better even during normal times, right? To create a clean energy and to keep doing progress toward that. But then what about other aspects of our infrastructure that need attention?
You know, the one thing I wanted to make sure to mention is that the American Petroleum Institute, along with other consortiums of area businesses, are pursuing some of the resources that the federal government is providing them through what is referred to as the Hydrogen Hub funding opportunity.
Right.
And so I'm also engaged on that. Although it's all a industry decision. I'm working to streamline the permitting process, so that if they do decide to pursue this, if they are successful in receiving the funding, then I can help them get there sooner rather than later. But that's just another thing that I wanted to make sure to mention to folks, because we're thinking on all fronts about this.
We have to pursue solar, hydrogen.
Everything. And then in terms of the infrastructure, look, in Precinct 2, we're the downstream side of 5 counties, including Harris County, Waller County, Fort Bend County, Montgomery County, Liberty County, and Harris County. And so making sure that we're paying attention to all aspects of our infrastructure also means that I have to think about the partners that I have in Precinct 2. I have 17 mayors, 17 cities that are also part of Precinct 2. And so I want to make sure that we're working to collaborate with them and providing resources to help them accomplish their infrastructure initiatives as well. All of this plays into my Revive to Thrive strategy. And so working with them, it's been very exciting, and I have created a process that is known as the partnership program. And it didn't exist before I became commissioner, and I wanted a transparent way to accomplish collaboration with the cities. So through that partnership program, the cities are able to apply, we collaborate, we evaluate projects. And since 2020, when we created the project, we have done 68 different partnership projects to a tune of $146 million since 2020.
Wow, this is all part of Revive to Thrive specifically. Okay.
Yes.
Great.
And then the cities have been very, very excited about participating in it. But Baytown in particular has been the city who has gained the lion's share of those resources. 32 million have gone, of those resources have gone
Baytown.
just to
Why
the
is
city of
that?
Baytown. They've just been good at their application. So I applaud the city of Baytown for pursuing those opportunities. And so we continue to work with them. But also it's real key that people recognize that aside from working with the cities, I'm working on the unincorporated areas where I have no city. So just in the last 12 months, actually less than 12 months, since December of last year, we've completed 8 of our capital improvement plan projects that involves everything from major road reconstructions to safer sidewalks, to safer bike lanes, and everything in between to make sure that we make the communities more resilient, healthier, more walkable for everybody involved. That is $30 million that's just been spent in those last 11 or so months. So very, very excited about the progress that we're making, but we absolutely have more to do. And because flooding remains at the forefront of our mind, we have to make sure that we have all of the critical infrastructure finished, like the Lauder detention basin that was completed, and the South Belt detention basin that is also being completed recently. The Lauder basin is a phase 1 project, so we got phase 2. But just to give people an idea of the collaboration with the flood control district and the investment that it's making, those 2 projects account for about $40 to $52 million worth of flood control, Harvey bond type of investment in the area. And then when we do the phase 2, that's going to be about another $40 million that will also be coming into the area. So very excited about all of that progress because, like it or not, as you were saying earlier, we love this town.
Yes.
But flooding is our middle name.
Yes. So we'll take it, but we'll be prepared.
Exactly.
For it. Yes.
Exactly.
And what about, you mentioned earlier about, all the coordination they have to do with many mayors and many communities. What are you doing to help to empower communities? And in terms of, I know there's a lot that the precinct is doing, but you have to coordinate efforts with lots of people, and ultimately this falls into our hands, right? As we the people, right? What are you doing to empower people, and what are you doing to empower communities?
I love the way you posed the question, because when I came into office, I wanted my team to constantly think of 3 fundamental guiding principles, and that was to educate, engage, and empower the residents of Precinct 2.
3 E's, I guess.
Yeah,
Easy
that's
to
right.
remember.
Exactly.
Yes.
And so one of the things that we've done to make that empowerment happen is that small businesses. I'm the kid of a parent who had a small business. And so I recognize that it is the backbone of the economy, but that also means that we got to have their backs as well.
Right.
So for example, during the pandemic, in the early months of the pandemic, the first project that we were able to get out the door with the CARES money was $70 million that went to area small businesses, not just in Precinct 2, but throughout. And of those businesses, about 5,000 businesses received that funding. 90%, as a result of that funding, were able to keep their doors open.
Great.
I wish we could have hit 100%,
Right.
but nonetheless, I'll take 90. So it was very helpful. But we also have to make sure that we are thinking about other ways and other communities on supporting them. So working with programs and my team, we've created Biz to Empower, which is a curriculum that helps area businesses learn about how to do business with the county as well as the precinct. I like to keep the money local, and then we've also created a micro certificate initiative known as Train to Empower, so that anybody of any age, young or older, can attend classes and get micro certificates on being a administrative medical assistant, or administrative legal assistant, or learn how to do some Adobe web design, and we've done some others. So all that is a part of our Train to Empower, because those micro certificates lead to better paying jobs that can lift people out of poverty and be game changers for many families. And then, not to forget, although we have no veterans in my family, in my immediate family, I have veterans in my wife's family, and I'm a big fan of our military in general. I almost joined the United States Army. That's a different story for another time. But just because of my respect for our veterans, I've also sought ways that we can provide that training for Biz to Empower for veteran-owned businesses as well. And so those initiatives are coming along very well. The veterans are excited because they've never really had something tailored for them coming from the county. So I'm looking forward to the day that veteran-owned businesses will be participating more and more with the precinct opportunities. But that also means, as I mentioned earlier, I like to keep the money local. When I came into office, we were spending about $32 million a year on average by the precinct from our general fund resources. And look, if that's a lot of money, and if it were my personal money, I'd keep it in the bank, but it's not. It's the people's money. So
it has to be spent.
It has to be spent, and it has to be spent in an effective way. So we have gone from 32 million average spend to about 47 million, and I want to do more, because when we put that money to work, we're creating jobs, we're sustaining small businesses, we're creating to the overall ecology of our economy.
Right. I should have said, not that it has to be spent, but it has to be invested.
That's right.
Because if you're doing it in this way, it'll come back to the community.
That's right.
So
that's exactly right.
I correct myself. I've also heard you say that you want to make Precinct to a destination.
Yes.
What does that mean to you, and how are you making that happen?
You know, when folks talk about, hey, they invite me, hey, would you like to go have dinner or go grab a drink or go see this play? It's always somewhere else. It's generally not in Precinct 2. And so I have, from day one, said, we're going to bring positive attention and great energy for families who live in the area, but also we're going to become the envy of other communities that do not.
Envidia.
Exactly. And so I'm so excited that we have been working towards creating some destination parks. So Sylvan Beach, historical, the only beachfront that Harris County has. It has the historic Sylvan Beach Pavilion. It's been home to many a quinceañera, many a wedding, many a school prom, many a special event, and I want to keep that going. But I also want to work with the city of LaPorte to help revamp and give more excitement and more energy to that park. And so we have about 30 million programmed for Sylvan Beach.
Wow.
And then you know, in Precinct 2, I also have the park that's named after Harris County's founder, John R. Harris Park, but there's nothing there. It's just a patch of land. And so that park is also programmed, which is in Houston's East End Magnolia area. And then going back to our veterans, as a city council member, I helped to start the Veterans Memorial Park. Well, I've been working with the city of Houston to revitalize that park because it's been a personal project for me, working with the veterans, Vietnam veterans at the time that had that vision for that park. Those veterans have since left us, and but their memory and their vision has stayed vivid in my mind. And so Veterans Memorial Park is another one of the parks that we're going to provide a lot of investment to, and it'll be a beautiful place for any member of any branch of our service that can go by and feel honored and respected and celebrated. And so that way, people will say, you know what, let's go to the east part of the county and see their parks because they're badass.
That sounds great.
So I want to make Precinct 2 parks the envy and destination for people in other parts of the county. But that would not be possible. None of this, the investment in Sylvan Beach, Veterans Memorial Park, or the creation, in all honesty, of the John R. Harris Park, none of that would be possible without the utilization of the 2022 park bonds that the voters approved. So we're putting, again, their resources to work. They give us permission to use that funding. And I want them to look at it and say, my money has been well invested.
Great. And it's good to know that they were supportive of these efforts going into it. So that's very, very good. So as we begin to wrap up this conversation, I want to go back to a topic that you brought up earlier, which is, of course, the flood infrastructure, because it's so important to our area. Can you say a little bit more about what is happening in that area? What are you doing to continue to improve? Because obviously everything that we're talking about is not a one and done kind of thing. It's an ongoing process. What are you doing to continue to improve flood infrastructure?
A lot of people don't realize that a lot of our infrastructure, our flood control infrastructure, our channels, when you see some of the areas that have concrete siding, a lot of this was built in the 30s and in the 40s. And so 72% of all of that has only about 20 years of usable life left in them. So it's, I try to describe this in this manner. When you buy a brand new car or anything new, you take care of it. You maintain it. If it's a car, you don't drive it until the wheels fall off. The original wheels. You change the oil. And
maintain it.
You maintain it. And so, you know, one of the conversations that we're having at Commissioners Court is making a proposal to the taxpayers so that we can have more resources to invest specifically into the maintenance. And that way we can get more life out of our infrastructure that, you know, we've already described how effective I believe it's working. But if you don't maintain it, it will stop working.
Right.
And so just as you said, we can't just build it, make it a one and done, but that when you do build it, you also have to think about how to take care of it. And so we're going back to the voters with a proposal that to provide a tax rate enhancement to the flood control district, and which will mean roughly about $60 a year to the average homeowner who might have a home that's valued approximately at $400,000. So I hope that the voters will see that this is important. I always want to talk about the positives of flooding, meaning that we haven't had as much as we've had typically in years past, with the example of the Memorial Day flood and Hurricane Beryl. But we can't take our eye off the ball, and we have to continue to make those investments in the maintenance of that infrastructure. So I'm hopeful that the voters will pay attention to Commissioners Court and the conversations there, and also follow us here on Precinct 2 so that they can stay up with the proposal that's being made. As I mentioned, we are making a great deal of investments into our flood control infrastructure. That investment's been able to be made by virtue of the 2018 Harvey bond that was approved by the taxpayers. As I mentioned earlier, they gave us $2.5 billion. I don't want that money to be wasted because we didn't maintain what it did bring us. As I mentioned, the Lauder Basin in the Aldine area, the South Belt Basin in the South Belt community. Once you build them, you just can't let it sit there. You got to continue to maintain it so that it continues to work and work as a system, so that no matter what part of Harris County gets a heavy rainfall, that community hopefully will not flood again, nor will it contribute to flooding on downstream communities like Precinct 2. So it's a system. We have to maintain it. The Harvey bond that folks gave us to use, we got to make that a wise investment, a wise decision. And the way you make it wise is by maintaining it.
Right, right, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Commissioner Garcia.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure to have a conversation with you and learn about all your efforts to serve the community. So thank you.
It is my honor, and thank you for yet again joining us here in Precinct 2.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you.